Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful. Back in the studio today working on our never-ending project. I had this challenge idea, if you are joining me for the very first time, to allow myself to only use recycled book page paper instead of any decorative paper packs. And it's very challenging and time consuming, but I'm having a blast. It is so much fun. So I hope if you watch this and you're inspired, that you will give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. So since we're kind of 7-ish videos into this challenge, I will put the link in the description to this entire series so that if you like this idea and want to see all the other things and how I made them, then you can watch from the beginning. And this is taking such a long time that you can probably start at the beginning and get caught up with me. So basically what I have done is I am making a junk journal in the style of a stacked envelope junk journal. So I had somebody, after I had decided to do this challenge with the book pages, asked me to do a video again where I put the whole thing together, the bones of it. So I did that, and that kind of gave me a twofer here. So since then, I had these blank pages I was looking at. I had no idea what style I was going to do or anything. So I had no kind of roadmap for what was happening here. I decided that I wanted to do a really colorful one because the last journal I did was very pastel-y, and I wanted to use the book pages instead of a paper pack because it was all one paper pack. And I wanted to try to do some brand new things that I maybe hadn't done before, or at least a twist. So that's what I'm doing in this book. I've decided on a kind of exotic travel, bohemian, colorful kind of feel for my book. All of these things, though, can apply to any kind of style. So choose your style, what you like, what you have fun working with, and you know, we can kind of do this whole thing together, and you can share your ideas with me in the comments. I would just love it if you have ideas. If you follow me on Facebook, you can probably, I might have to do permissions. I'm not sure how that works, but if you want to put photos even in the comments, try to do that. And if it doesn't work, I may have to just change a setting or something. So I'll put the link to my Facebook page, and it's my business page, not my personal page. I don't even look at that. So follow me there. I do a drawing once a month, and I kind of do other little photos or little posts about different things that I don't do here. So to get to what I'm going to work on today, once I got started on this, I started thinking of all kinds of ideas, and I was coming up with new ideas faster than I could get the things made. So I started myself a list, and you might, whatever theme that you're doing, do a similar thing of ideas of items that can go into your book that fit with that theme, but we're going to do a twist on them so that they fit for a journal. So I've just kind of made a list of different things for travel that I came up with, so it'll help me with little prompts when I kind of get stuck. So I started on this first page because I just didn't even know where to start, and it got me at least going. So I've done videos on these. You can find them there. The little puzzle pack, I ended up just making a little decorative thing and sticking it in there. So you can find all those videos, but I did want to just make one comment because I had a question from Elvie. She'd been watching me do the papers, but didn't know how I was attaching them into my book. So I'll just briefly tell you here, and then I promise when I do this side, I will actually do it on camera, and that way you can see if you do have any kind of questions about it. So for me, this one ended up as a pocket. I did all of the decorative stuff, the stitching, anything, the decoupage, all this I did after the fact of my original papers. So I was doing these papers in kind of a mixed media style, but I wasn't doing them to completion to go onto a page because I thought I was really going to lay this book out kind of organized, and I didn't know what paper was going to go where. I've kind of let that go. I'm being a little more free with my design now, which is good. I think this whole experience has kind of helped me to let go a little bit, and I really like that. So when I'm ready to do this one, I'll glue it on. Excuse me. So I decided this one was a pocket. So really, once I had everything finished and it was the thickness I needed it to be, all I needed to do is glue these 3 edges. And I need a drink of water because I have a tickle in my throat. So I just used my Mod Podge. You can use whatever glue that works where you live. I live in a dry climate and that tends to set up quick for me and work. So I just use that. And I just glue it around the edges. I use my fine line applicator for stuff like that because it just puts a little bead where I need it. I normally use Mod Podge from a big container. So I usually, if I'm doing a whole page, I use a paintbrush and just paint it on. So instead of having like Elmer's glue comes in a little bottle, I just have this fine line applicator that I use for any kind of lines or small little areas. So that's what I like to use. I know everybody has their favorite thing, and I'm sure you have yours. So just use whatever you like. And then I just use these clips, which I really like, these little bulldog clips. And someone asked me how big they were, and I think they're probably about 1.5 inches maybe. And I just line them around the edges until my glue sets up, which is usually just like a couple of minutes. So that just kind of helps me get glue all the way to the edge. And then if I do have something that were to come up, I can just use my little fine line applicator and clamp it again. So pretty easy. But today, the new tutorial that I want to do is, one of the ideas that I had was to do a little scrapbook out of my scraps. So if you've watched the last videos, because I'm bouncing around and I'm making different things, I'm already ending up with little bits and pieces and scraps of paper. So I had done one where I made beads. That's the last one, I think, so you want to watch that one. But then I still had odd shaped scraps. So I decided I would make a scrapbook with my scraps. And I did some experiments with trying to create the scrapbook pages that you find in a scrapbook. They're usually dark color and just plain cardstock. After doing some experiments where I would try gluing 2 pieces together and painting and all that, because you're introducing the paint as a liquid and then trying to put 2 together, I didn't like how that worked at all. What I ended up with is I would take just a single sheet of book page and then do like 2 coats of a matte finish black paint, any kind of acrylic paint. And it actually made it thick enough and sturdy enough by the time I ironed it to get all that moisture out. It made it nice and flat. I have no bubbles to worry about. And I have that matte black background that I want. So that worked out perfect. So for me, to decide on the size of my book, I just decided what fit in that pocket that I knew I wanted to put it in. And mine ended up being about 4 inches wide by 5.5 inches high. So I just cut basically a single sheet of book page to the size of my covers. So I do 2 of those. And then I knew for my book that it was going to be a scrapbook about faces. When I travel, because mine's kind of a travel theme, one of the things that I have a tendency to do, especially if you're in another country where it's just a different culture, I like to take pictures of random people. And you ask them to be polite, you know, even if you don't speak the same language, you can usually hand signal things and then they'll let you take their picture. And I just love it when it's, you know, they're in maybe a certain costume or attire that they wear that's totally different. And it doesn't have to be just people. It could be faces of animals that are native. This was in Australia. And it could even be stone figures that are faces. And one of my very favorites is this one. So it's just, you know, it could be faces in carvings, that kind of thing. So to make all my little pictures, once I had my scrapbook pages, I work on a Mac, so we have Photos is just part of your computer. If you go into Photos, it allows you to make a contact sheet. You can select several pictures, and instead of printing a bunch on one page, or a single one a bunch of times on the page, you can put different pictures there. So if you have a way to do that on your computer, that's how I did this. I didn't tell it what size I wanted each one to be. I just chose a bunch of pictures, fit them onto one contact sheet, and they came out this size. And then I just cut them apart. I went ahead and did these on photo paper just because I wanted them to look like scrapbook photos. So I figured since everything else in my book is made with book page, I would allow myself to use photo paper for this one because it's not already decorative paper. So I'm still within my challenge. So figure out what you want maybe to go in your book. And then that might also determine what kind of size you end up making it. So once I had my inside pages, and then I cut 2 cover pieces that I wanted to use. And one thing that I thought was fun is I knew my book was going to be faces. And so I actually tried to find words that kind of would relate back to the fact that this is a scrapbook in my piece of paper. So I have on the front cover, I have happy, people, friends. And on the back, I was able to find some things in life are important, old friend, a nice thing to do, reminisce. And those were all just words or phrases that kind of led me back to the fact that this is a scrapbook. So I kind of like to, it's like little hidden messages in your work. And I kind of like that. So I took my piece of paper and I went and found different words, and I just did a couple here just so, you know, for show. Find those words that make that phrase for you and then just highlight them. I did it with a gold pen, but they're pretty much going to get covered up anyway, the pen, so it doesn't really matter. I just like to highlight them so that I don't accidentally cover them up when I'm collaging. So I have a couple words here, and then I just took my little box of scraps that you should not throw away because I have more ideas for these. So even little bits of thread from slow stitching the scraps, all of that, any tiniest little sliver I'm keeping because I have a plan. So I started out with maybe like the bigger pieces, you know, and just kind of maybe move the color around so that it's just pleasing to your eye. And then I kind of did a couple of larger ones, and then I would do some smaller ones and kind of fill in the blanks, just like a puzzle. And then even the little slivers, like if you get one, I didn't really do too much cutting or anything, but maybe I needed to fill in a tiny little gap or just to break something up. Then I'm even using the little slivers. So to adhere all of these, I just used my regular glue stick, and then I had my fine line with Mod Podge in it handy just to get little corners if I needed to. And on this one, I even did a little bit, I had some scrap of the currency. If you watched the last videos that I decoupaged with currency, it's tissue paper, and I had little scraps of that. So I just kind of, you know, collaged it all, even the ones where I had cut out a circle maybe, that was the, you know, you end up with these kind of arched pieces. So I've saved everything and then just kind of made a little collage with it. Even to go and take your skinny pieces and weave them in and out like a basket weave is kind of fun to do. And then this would be where I had cut out like these little, you know, button circles, things like that. You know, you've cut that out, and then I made it a square. So just kind of, you know, do whatever comes to you to get your collage going. And then I decided I wanted to do some slow stitching just on the front cover. So I didn't do it on the back because it's the back, but I wanted to do a little bit on the front. So before I did the stitching, I went over the whole thing with just Mod Podge. So even though I had used glue stick to stick things down, I wanted it to kind of get that vinyl feel like a book cover, and to make sure that everything's kind of decoupaged in there as a sealer. So I just went over with a layer of matte Mod Podge, and then took it to my sewing machine, and I just stitched around just the outside edge, and then I could do my slow stitching, because at this point my decorative piece is just one layer of book page and then all the decoupage, so that added another layer. So it's like 2 layers thick, which is what I like to have to slow stitch. So I only did a tiny bit just here and there, just for fun, just to give it a little dimension. So the little X's are with some turquoise metallic, and then metallic here, and then I did a copper metallic here. And this is just a kind of a lavender straight line. Nothing fancy, you know, just to kind of give it that crazy quilt kind of feel. and kind of highlight my little people and friends. And then I like the fact that this actually, I didn't stamp that. This was part of my scrap, is I had a face in a stamp. And so I just did that. And little flowers, 3 little flowers here. And then I used one of my little buckles. If you watched the last video with the eye candy one, I used my ice resin and I made some little buckles and buttons and different things that can be different decorative elements. I've made a few so that I'll have them for other projects in this journal. So I did that. And I originally I thought maybe I would actually make this a functioning buckle. So I just sewed just the center in with some embroidery thread, but I ended up deciding not to. It's pretty thin and I don't think I really need a closure. So I went ahead and just left that. Once I had that finished, then I'm ready to make my cover thicker so that it's more like a book. I ended up with a total of 5 pieces of paper to get it to this thickness. And I think it's fine for this. It's not too thick. I wanted to be able to score just the front cover so that it would fold back. I didn't score the pages or the back cover because this type of book reminded me how scrapbooks are, where there's just, you just score the top line. So I did 5 layers on this. I did all my stitching, like I said, in that first 2 so that I could cover up all the stitching. So I've got 3 more layers of paper, including this black one. So it's the black one, then there's a painted one behind, one in between, and then my 2 layers that made my collage. Once you have your covers done, you're ready to put it together. And so since I had already done this off camera, I went ahead and did a little mock-up that I'm gonna do just because I know if I don't show this, somebody's gonna ask me to. So I might as well do it now. So I have a little tool that I use, and this is gonna be my front cover. If you're wondering why it looks just like the other one, is I went ahead, before I put this together, I just loved how brightly colored it was. So I thought I would kind of treat it like a masterboard. So I put it in my printer and just scanned it into my computer. That way I'll always have this taken apart in case I want to use these decorative sides for anything. Now I just did it because I was in a hurry and I didn't want to really remake this book again. I just took the copy that I had made and I just printed it on plain old copy paper. If I were to have done it on photo paper or something like that, or a specialty paper that had some gloss, the colors would have been more vibrant. And they actually weren't as vibrant as this. I put a coat of Mod Podge on this just to kind of get it to that same texture that I was working with. And then I've just did 5 pieces, I think, total again of thickness, just so it'll work for my demo. I didn't, paint these black, but this is all, just some pages. Now, I do want to show this though. If you've put books together, little booklets, it's just the same concept. But if you're brand new to all of this and haven't done that yet, I like to make my inside pages a tiny bit smaller than my cover. That way it just kind of is like a real book. So I've cut these just probably a 1/4 inch or so smaller all the way around from my cover, okay? Now, this one I want to score. So I'm just gonna use my, get rid of this one. I'm gonna use my Recollection scoreboard. And because I know I'm going to do a decorative stitch here, I know where my holes are gonna land just from having done this multiple times. So I know that on my board, I have a cutting blade and a scoring blade. And it's going to score right in this channel, and I know that if I put it right here at the one, that's going to score it where I need to for my stitching. So if you are going to freehand make your holes for your book, just decide how big you want your spine to be. You could move it over, and it could be whatever you want it to be. I just wanted it to be just enough to grab my pages but leave as much as possible to put my pictures. So this is probably, let's see, where's a ruler? Just for sake of, it's through, let's see, it's about 3/8 of an inch for mine. So like you could do 1/2 inch, whatever's easy. So I'm just gonna score it at that line And if you don't have something like this, you can just do it with a bone folder and a ruler. Okay, so all that's going to do is it's going to kind of allow me to fold that easier. And like I said, if you didn't have that, just take a ruler and a bone folder or a little scoring tool, and then just run that along. And all that does is gives you a nice straight line for your fold. Okay, now I'm going to put all this together. You want to make sure that your pages almost go to the spine edge. I set it a little bit off, probably like a 1/16 of an inch. I don't want it all the way to the edge because I don't want to see them sticking out. Now the one thing I didn't mention that I did, just because I'm not doing this whole thing, is I went ahead before I even did the Mod Podge. I used my Distress Oxide, and I always use this vintage photo. I like the look. I went around the edges to get rid of all the white first. I did that before I Mod Podged, and what that did was it gave me that dirty blended kind of look. So you can do it at whatever point, you know, that you like. Maybe you don't like that yellowed dirty look like I do, so you would maybe just do the edges or Mod Podge it first so you don't get so much ink on there. So that's just a matter of personal taste. So I have my pages all in here, and now I'm going to clamp them just so they don't move around. Just like that. That way they'll stay together. Now the other tool that I have that I like to use, and I've shown this lots of times, I'll put the link again. This is from We Are Memory Keepers, and it's just a bookbinding tool. And it came in a whole little kit. I've shown it a million times if you've watched my videos. I won't take the time to show you the whole kit right now, but I'll put the link and you can take a look at it. So I'm just going to put my book, and you'll see that it has all these circles. Those have holes, and that's where I'm going to punch my holes. You can, like I said, you could do this by hand by using a ruler and just marking where you want your holes, and then punching it with, maybe you lay this on a towel, and then you can use an awl or a needle, heavy size needle, and punch that. But I'm going to use this tool that I love, and I'm just going to center it between some holes so that I know all my holes that I'm going to punch through are the same distance apart. So that looks like I've got it centered between two of the holes that line up. And I have it pushed all the way to the edge, and then these little things just screw down so that it's in there tight. So now that way I can choose which holes depending on what design I want. I'm going to use, if you look at this, you can see one hole doesn't have a ring around it and the next one does. That's just to help you to be able to eyeball it without counting every other one. So I've kind of have it centered between two with the ring around it, and then I'm going to just choose those all along. So it's really every other hole. And then this came with a little pokey tool. You can use, like I said, if you don't have all these tools, you can just use like a heavy duty needle. I keep a little drawer here of my bookbinding things. So you could actually just take a big, where is it? Like a crewel embroidery or something, a really big needle, and use that to punch. And then I would just, I have like a little padded cushion that I could use, but you could fold up a towel or something. The nice thing about this is you don't poke through. So I'm gonna just go through and poke in all those ones with the donut. And depending on how thick your book is and how many pages you have, you might have to split it up and do like just the covers, and then maybe add in the pages, make it with one of the covers to make sure you get it lined up in the offset way that you need to. Okay, so now I have all my holes. I could take it out of this. And then the kit came with a little booklet that has a whole bunch of different stitches that you can do. So it will actually tell you which holes you need to punch for each decorative stitch. And that's kind of a fun thing. When I was first learning all this, I just thought it was a fun way to learn all these bookbinding stitches. You can probably actually even go online and try to find some decorative ones, but this one's handy. And I've even come up with some, like the one I'm going to do today is not even in that book. So I decided, I started actually doing it with a different design in mind. And I started stitching it with just thread, and I didn't like it. And I thought, you know, it just really needs something more. And since I did this pencil with the leather, I thought it would be fun to do it with leather and then add some beads again. So that's what I did. So I took my, this is 1 millimeter leather. It's the same one I used on the pencil. So it's really tiny, and I can get through my holes. Now, the holes that little pokey tool made aren't big enough for two layers of leather, and you have to get 2 into each hole. So I just took my bead reamer. If you do jewelry at all, or you can get these at Michael's, I just used that, and that way I could make my holes a little bit bigger than my little thing made it. I have a punch too, but the punch that I had, one size was the same as the holes and the other side was a little bigger than I wanted it to be. So I just decided that my bead reamer was going to be easier. So I'm just going in, and you can go in one way and then come back and go through from the other side if you want. I try to do this from the front because the side opposite is going to be kind of chinked up more. It's kind of a mess. You could sand that down if you wanted to, or, you know, clean it up. And actually maybe going through from the other side afterwards might kind of make it go back. Okay, we're going to hope those are big enough. And if they're not, you can just go back through. So you can see this is messier than the front side. So I kind of like to do that. Like I said, you could take a little sanding block if you want. What I usually do is I get my distressed stuff and take that, knock that down just so it's not white, and then it doesn't look so bad. So I'm going to take a length, probably a little more than double of the length of my book. And then I decided, because I didn't really have a pattern or anything, I started at the bottom because I knew I wanted my, kind of like lacing up a shoe is basically what this is. And I wanted to have a tassel from the top. So I just kind of halfway, and then just like lacing a shoe, I'm going to go across the spine and through the next hole. And then across the spine and back to the back from that. And so you're just going to alternate it all the way. And I got lucky and my holes are big enough. And then pull that tight. So I'm crossing over the spine, coming back through. And then through the front. I don't know if I mentioned, if you follow my Facebook page, you know I got a new well, I've been trying to get a new camera set up, and it's kind of a learning curve. I'm not a videographer, and I had just been using my iPhone, which is fine. It's a newer phone. I think it does a good job. My problem were things like people calling while I was video and that kind of thing. So I learned to put it on Do Not Disturb, but I had it balancing on a book for a long time that was strapped to a light, if you can believe that. And then I tried to get a little more high tech, and I got a light stand that had an iPhone holder thing, and that worked pretty good, but the legs of the thing are in your way, and it was just not ideal for what I want to do. So then my husband had the idea to go and get a GoPro, that might be a good thing, and a whole setup. So I got the GoPro. I'm probably returning it. I don't like how it works at all. It doesn't have enough battery. There's so many technical reasons why I don't like it. My iPhone works perfectly fine. So the one problem I'm having, I got a stand thing that's perfect. I love it, to hold my phone. I can see now when I'm in it's at a level that I can see the screen but I need to work on my lighting. I think I'm getting shot. I'm either have shadows or glare. So I've got to work on that. But I had no idea when I started this that I would have anyone watching. So now I need to just try to improve a little bit. So I'm about halfway. I'm just talking through this because I want to get to the end. And I already have my idea for my next video, but I haven't made it yet. I'm finding that each of these little things takes a little longer because I want to do all the slow stitch, all the things that take a long time. So, but that's okay, because that's part of the fun, is that it's relaxing, and I enjoy doing it. Okay, back over. It's still snowing. We have snow today. It's so nice. I thought we were never going to have winter. We had a very early, much larger than expected snow in November. And then it just got like springtime. It's just been crazy. And I think that's been like that maybe a lot of places. But I just thought we were going to totally skip winter this year. And now this week we're going to get, we already had one little snow and we're getting more today. And then in a couple of days we're supposed to get a really big one. For us, that's like 3 to 5 feet here. And we usually don't get that much at one time. So we'll see if it does or not. The ski resorts will like it. We're very close to a lot of ski resorts. But I kind of missed it. It's supposed to be cold and snowy this time of year. Oh, I'm on the last one here. Okay, so for this one, I want to have one come through the top, through the front, rather. I have to make my hole a little bit bigger. So I'm going to cross over and come through the front. But then this one, I just want to cross over. I'm not going to go through the hole. That's where I'll tie my knot. Ta-da! So that's it. And then you just, add whatever beads you want to add. I used some of my little copper spacer beads with the paper beads that I made in between. And then to stagger them, on this I strung them kind of all right together and then tied a knot at the bottom. On this one, I did a little grouping and then tied a knot so it wouldn't slide down and left a space. So that way you can kind of have them staggered. So that's my little scrappy scrapbook made from scraps. And my next idea I have is a passport. So for my travel theme. So my little guy is going to just go be happy in his little spot. Oh, I should point this out too, is if you watched this episode where I did this cover, you can see that even though my papers are all bright, this one is brighter than this one. And that's because I had done the wash with the white gesso to kind of send that to the background so that my embellishment came forward. And you can really see that when I show you two papers next to each other. So I think in this book, I'm going to do a combination where some of them I leave bright and some of them I tone down. So he's going to fit right here nicely. I'll put my little pictures in there. I need to print out a few more because I'm missing some that I'd like to have in there. And then I liked the paper doing the black paper like that, you can actually write on it. So you can use gold pen, and you can put, you know, where you were, you know, do it in gold, or if you have a you know, a specific place or something, but it works with silver too. So you're just gonna have all your little silver looks good, and then white. These pens, let's see, these pens I got at Walmart, and they came in a set of 3. I've shown them before, but I really love them. I've been using them for my doodling. They're Uniball Signo gel pens. They're broad, and they came in, which the size I guess is 1 millimeter, and they came in a set of 3. So you can buy them individually at Michael's in the art section, but these came together as a set. So I like that you can write on this black paper just like a real scrapbook. So I need to just add my pictures. So I hope you felt inspired by this video, and if you did, give me a thumbs up. Leave me some comments if you have any questions, or if I forget to put anything in the link. Sometimes I do that. And I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day. Now go make something. Bye.